Oh, yes. Welcome on in, guys, to Fantasy Intervention. Oh, yes, we have yet another episode coming right at you guys. Coming right at you. I'm excited for it. We're breaking down the numbers. You know how we do on Thursdays, right? Thursdays are for the numbers, boys. Now, of course, since we are over here breaking down the numbers, right, I can't do all these numbers by myself. I just can't do it. I got too much going on throughout the week. So back a few weeks ago, I reached out to two of the best guys when it comes to the numbers that I personally know that are already part of the Fantasy Intervention team. I need to introduce, or reintroduce, I should say, Juan of Khan and Dave. What's going on, guys? How y'all doing today?
Doing good. As always, man. Happy to be here.
I love these Thursdays. I love these numbers days, man. I'm ready.
God, man, the numbers just get me excited. The numbers just get me all tingly inside.
A little bit.
So, Juan, real quick, man, let's go ahead and let everybody know where to find you, man. What's going on? You know, how do we know that you're qualified to talk these numbers?
Well, you can check me out at TIR_pod. That's where we do our weekly podcast. I do 3 shows a week there at Join Our Circle. Formerly, I was a writer at Dynasty Happy Hour, and I have articles posted there. And at Join Our Circle, we're going to be up and running, and we'll have articles posted there as well. And we do this show every Thursday, and this is another installment that we're going to do. And Dave does a fantastic job of setting it up, and we have a great time doing this. And I love to do this. So if you don't know, you will after this show, hopefully.
If you don't know, then you'll know in an hour.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man, Dave, what's going on, man? Where can we find you, buddy?
Man, you can find me all over the place now. I'm writing for the Pregame HQ, where you can find my long-form articles. You could also find me at Fantasy Pros, where I'm working on their news correspondence desk, bringing you guys all the up-to-date injury, transactions, whatever it may be. And then, of course, you can find me at JoinOurCircle_, where we're bringing you this show every single week. Ton of other great live streams. Chase, you're just absolutely killing the game. Don't stop.
Don't stop.
I don't know how to stop, man. I don't have that break. Like, I don't have that pump, man. Like, I try to stop sometimes. I'm sitting there laying in bed, and I'm like, man, it's only 12 o'clock at night. Like, I have another 2 hours left in me. Let me get back up. Let me go work on something else for, of course, at JoinOurCircle_. And that, of course, guys, is where you can find a lot of our content from Fantasy Intervention. You guys can also check out my personal work at FF_intervention. But yeah, the whole crew, the whole group is at JoinOurCircle_. At JoinOurCircle_. That's how you guys can find Fantasy Intervention. Now, we do have a big episode coming your way for week 10, guys, so do stay tuned. But I would like to introduce our brand new sponsor, Thrive Fantasy. Come hashtag prop up on Thrive Fantasy this season. Guys, Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports app for player props, right? If you guys like player props, this is the site for you, because you don't have to sit there and dive that deep into it. It's very similar to a daily fantasy sports app like DraftKings, like FanDuel, except for you build your lineups with player props. So you have like 20 different ones. You go through, you pick 10, that builds your lineup. Whoever finishes with the best overall lineup out of the whatever contest you select, you win money. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Not lying. When it comes to Thrive Fantasy, it's one of my favorite player prop sites out there. Not going to lie to you guys, I've been diving into it a lot over the past week or so. I've had a lot of fun doing it. And I cannot wait for tonight's game with Thursday night. But yeah, make sure you guys, if you go sign up for thrivefantasy.com, make sure you guys use the promo code CIRCLE when you sign up, and you'll receive an instant match bonus of up to $50 on your first deposit or 20 or more. So you throw in $20, you get 40, right? Throw in $40, you get 80. So, guys, make sure you guys go sign up for thrivefantasy.com, thrivefantasy.com, and use promo code CIRCLE. Once again, that's promo code CIRCLE. Sign up and prop up today. All right. I didn't butcher that one too bad, right? That was a good read, right?
Crush it, man. Great. I'm ready to sign up.
Yeah, me too. We use them, and they're actually a great site to use, man. That's somebody you definitely want to go hit that site up, and why not? Prop up and take a bet. Put it on Thrive Fantasy. And
use promo code CIRCLE and get that bonus in, baby. Get that bonus in.
Isn't this whole industry about putting your money where your mouth is?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, good point. Go prop up. Go prop up today. All right, guys. I do want to jump into this episode. We are diving into week 10. We got a bunch of strange things going on with week 10. It's kind of funny. I'm in a couple different group chats, and we talked about all these revenge games coming up, right? Like we have Adrian Peterson going back to Washington. Although Washington kind of did him a favor because they actually cut him before the cut deadline, so we had time to go find a team. But, I mean, it's just like literally like revenge game after revenge game after revenge game. Then you just have some matchups over there that are just, I mean, out there in left field bizarre. But the one that I want to start out with, guys, is Dalvin Cook. because we talked about Dalvin Cook last week, right? After
Yep.
facing the worst rushing defense in the league 2 weeks ago, he then got to face the second worst run defense in the league. So over 2 weeks, he combined for 478 yards, baby. 6 touchdowns. That's absolutely insane. I love it. I absolutely love it. Because, we were sitting there just talking. We were foaming at the mouth over Dalvin Cook. Now he faces a Chicago team that just kept Derrick Henry bottled up for 68 yards on 21 touches, which was actually rather impressive. Where are we ranking Dalvin Cook heading into week 10? Is he going to be like the top RB for you guys, or is he going to be kind of down in the pecking order?
Yeah, I mean, I've still got him as my RB1 this week. Derrick Henry, he's a power runner, and the Bears' strength is in their ability to stop the inside run. They've got those guys, Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Mario Edwards. They're clogging up the trenches and making it tough to get yards in between the tackles. But Dalvin Cook, his biggest strength is in his raw speed and his ability to get to the edges. Chicago's defense is giving up an explosive play of 15 yards or more on 15% of their rushes right now, which is the second most in the league behind only the Bengals. And when it comes to explosive plays on offense, Dalvin Cook has the second most in the league behind only Nick Chubb, which is crazy because Nick Chubb has only played half the season. But anyway, the Bears, they don't really have a speedster linebacker that can stop Dalvin Cook from getting going in the screen game either. So I'm expecting another huge week for Dalvin Cook. He should be the RB1 heading into this week. And this matchup is going to be a pretty good barometer for his playoff schedule because weeks 14 through 16, he's got to face Tampa Bay, Chicago, and New Orleans. So if he's able to, we know he can beat up on a terrible defense, but if he's able to go off against the Bears this week, that just makes him even that much more valuable for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's something as to where I love Dalvin Cook. I'm a little bit worried about his injuries moving forward, but Juan, what do you think, man? Where are you standing with this?
I agree a lot with a lot of what Dave said. And I worry about the injuries a little bit too, but this is the beginning of the test for him. Like that playoff schedule that Dave noted is probably going to keep him from maintaining his league winning pace. Like he's currently on pace to have the second best fantasy season by a running back in the last 5 seasons. His blistering 28.7 points per game are only 0.08 points less than CMC's historic 2019 season when he had 471 fantasy points. So this week, he's going to have to rely on those explosive plays that they've highlighted against the Bears because they're number 1 against the running back in points per game allowed. So I would place him as number 2 this week because Alvin Kamara gets the 49ers, who are 15th in overall points allowed to the running back, but they are allowing the 3rd most receptions to the running back, and that's where Kamara thrives. And he has 5 catches in 7 of 8 games, at least 5 catches in 7 of 8 games this year. So for me, it's Kamara 1 and Dalvin Cook a close second, but it is really close.
Yeah, it's interesting for me, especially this week. That's because that's obviously what we're highlighting. That's what we're looking at. And when we sit there and we look at the Chicago Bears and how good they've been on defense, wow, how bad they've been on offense, it's just kind of like a mind-blowing like situation, right? And I'm sure Dave over there is a little bit too familiar with the pain that comes with being a Chicago Bears fan, especially on the offensive side of the ball over there. So.
Yeah. It's watching paint dry every week, man. That team is just brutal, but they're my Bears. So I got to keep watching them.
Oh God, man. No, I mean, but Dave Montgomery, he's doing great, right? He's like a superstar over there, right?
That's your boy.
Oh God, man. Yeah, you guys already know how I feel about David Montgomery. Good thing though, he's expected to miss this week while dealing with the concussion. That is so messed up to say, but I did say it. So the thing is his backup Ryan Nall came in, and it's been a really weird situation with him because he came in last week, put up 35 yards and a touchdown. And I believe that he has something like 29 total snaps on the year so far. He has 0 carries. This guy is 6'2", 242 pounds or something, or maybe it's 234. Either way, this dude is a mammoth of a human being, and he's being used as a pass-catching back. I don't understand it. Like, what is going on with the Bears? They're running Montgomery into the back of the line up until he ends up like, Gus Farad over there, running into a freaking wall. And then you sit there and you have, Monty, right? Like, I mean, you sit there and you have Ryan Nall, who they're using as a pass catching back, and he should be the guy that you're using to run into a wall. He is a bulldozer of a human being. He is literally like Peyton Hill's light. What is going on there? Is he going to be a reliable starter in week 10? Are we going to trust Nagy to call the right plays? Or is it going to be Cordell Patterson trying to run between the center and the guard this week?
Look, I mean, it feels a little bit desperate, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I mean, the struggles of that offense that you said as a whole, Montgomery's only averaging 3.5 yards a carry. And Null, surprisingly, is in the 82nd percentile in agility score. And he averaged 6.2, 6.5, and 4.9 yards per carry at Oregon State in his 3 seasons. And he had 27 catches in his final year, hence the pass catching ability. But the free agent wire is really, really thin right now. And if you missed out on Jermichael Hasty, if you missed out on Damian Harris and Zach Moss, you might have to get Null, and he might be a sneaky start, but it really feels desperate.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly desperate, but given the opportunity that he should receive and the fact that the Vikings are giving up more than average to opposing running backs, I don't think starting Null would be the worst idea this week. You know, Nagy is going to mix in some Cordero Patterson jet sweeps, but Null, he's kind of equipped to be a true running back, like you mentioned. He's 6'2", and I looked it up, Chase. He's 238 pounds. So you were right there.
I was right in between. I was right, almost exactly in between. I said 234, 242. It was literally right in the middle.
Yes, but you know, this guy, he was nicknamed the Wrecking Null in college for a reason. He's a power back, and then on top of that, he's got soft hands, which we've seen because they've only used him as a receiver. So no Montgomery, no Tariq Cohen. He could easily end up seeing, between 15 and 20 touches in this matchup, and that would make him a decent flex play. Like you mentioned, he hasn't seen a single carry yet on the season, but 6 catches for 39 yards show that he can do a little bit of damage in the open field and with the ball in his hand. So he's not the most exciting play, but I think he can make for a solid flex play.
Yeah, it's better than I do over there, right? Like with this whole Bears situation and the headache that exists. It's something that I will never, ever understand what's going on. So I guess a guy that I understand a little bit more than the Wrecking Null and the whole thing going on in Chicago, but it's still a little bit, misty, is Jacoby Myers. Like we don't ever know what's going on with the Patriots side of things, right? So we see Jacoby Myers constantly getting production, constantly getting work, and we saw it at the beginning of the season last year, especially in the preseason with Tom Brady. And then I thought that Tom Brady just hated Jacoby Myers because he was a rookie and giving him the same exact treatment as N'Keal Harry. Meanwhile, we see him now coming out and pretty much playing like an all-star. And I understand the Patriots have no other receivers, but he's still racking up big-time points. So heading into Week 10 up against the Ravens, we could see Marcus Peters. We don't really know exactly how that's going to work out. Are we going to expect a similar performance? Dave, we'll start out with you.
You know what? I did a pretty deep dive on Jacoby Myers this week, and I feel like it kind of forced me to go against the grain a little bit. It's so hard to struggle. It's so hard to predict who is going to be the guy on this offense. We thought it was going to be Edelman early in the year when he had that career week. Then we saw some flashes from N'Keal Harry, and he was leading the team in targets. Even Damiere Byrd was looking good for a little while there. But Jacoby Myers, his big 2 weeks, I think were mostly due to Harry being sidelined with that concussion. With Harry back at practice this week and assumed to play on Sunday, I'm a little bit nervous about rolling Myers out. Prior to Harry going down, Myers hadn't seen more than 11% of his team snaps or more than 1 target in a single game. So if you want to pick him up and stash him on your bench for this week and see how he plays with Harry back, I can understand that. But I'd be pretty worried about rolling him out, as a starter. There isn't a single guy on that team that's averaged more than 6 points per game as the receiver. So I think with Cam Newton only throwing for 200 yards a game, it just really limits his upside.
But I want to love Jacoby Myers. I want to love him. I don't get it, man. Juan, do you love Jacoby Myers as much as I do?
I don't, but I'm going to give you a reason to have a little bit of optimism. But it's not a particularly like I hate Jacoby Myers kind of thing. It's the New England offense. Like it's ebbs and it flows, and you don't know which guy is going to go each week, and the roles keep changing constantly. Like Dave mentioned, Julian Edelman, week 2, you thought, okay, he's going to be a league winner this year. And then he's been injured. So that production that Dave highlighted from Jacoby Myers is great. And recently it has been great, but the matchups are tough. So if you can get a guy this week, like over Jacoby Myers, I prefer Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, Tim Patrick, Curtis Samuel, who scored 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. So those guys are all better options. But your optimism, your silver lining, Chase, is that he's lining up in the slot 72.9% of the time. So since he's lining up there, he's going to avoid the gauntlet that is coming when Harry comes back. They're going to face Patrick Peterson, Casey Hayward, Jalen Ramsey, Byron Jones, and Trey White. They should all try to take away N'Keal Harry, and he should be able to thrive in the slot if anybody's going to thrive in that offense.
That's a good point.
No, and that was the biggest thing that I wanted to take away from that is I don't think he's affected by N'Keal Harry. I think he's actually affected by Julian Edelman's return because he is playing so many snaps in the slot. So up until Julian Edelman's healthy, which we don't even know if that will actually happen this year because of the fact that they might just, mail it in this season and might see what they have with their second year guy. So it's something as to where I actually really like Jacoby Meyer moving forward for this rest of the season, and especially for dynasty leagues as a whole. Now, looking at our next little situation over here, right? We have the Ravens, which have been like a weekly lock if you're playing in a league with defense and special teams. They've given up a few points here and there, but honestly, that defense is absolutely brutal. On the other side of things, the offense hasn't been quite as cool. Like, I haven't liked owning anybody on the offensive side of this ball, not even Lamar Jackson this year. We all expected J.K. Dobbins to smash Week 9 to an extent. I know that they had a tough game, when it came to playing up against the Colts. You really can't run on that team, but we still had a little bit of optimism to an extent. So this almost kind of feels weird, like looking back at myself from 2019. Like, if you asked me in 2019, hey, do you think anybody's going to be fantasy relevant on the Ravens in 2020? I'd look at you like you were absolutely nuts, like you were out of your mind. Yeah. So is this something that's where, like, is it the Twilight Zone? Are there any fantasy relevant players for the Ravens moving forward for 2020?
That question sounds crazy, just you asking it, but I mean, it really is true at this point. But I think everything has to do with Lamar Jackson. Like, it's all about him. He's got to get somewhat back to that 2019 form, and then all of the weapons will benefit. So that's my optimism. Again, I'm trying to be the silver lining guy on some of these, spots and some of these situations. But the value of Dobbins and Edwards is going to take a hit when and if Ingram comes back, which could be this week, which would be the worst timing for Dobbins owners. Because, if you're looking to trade him, maybe you're hoping that he does well this week. The Patriots have allowed 27.2 points per game to the running back in the last 4 games. You've seen Phillip Lindsay gash him. You've seen Jeff Wilson gash him. You've seen 2 different Buffalo Bills get 80 yards or more rushing against them too. So,
and one was not Josh Allen.
Correct. And it was Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. So, yeah. So the pass catchers are a whole nother story. Like, Andrews is practically untradeable. You're just going to have to hold on and hope he bounces back. And the value of Hollywood Brown hasn't been lower than it is at this point.
Dave, what do you say, man? Because I still got question marks.
It's tough, man. And when I was writing the show sheet, I debated not even having this question in there. And then I saw that ESPN actually, Matthew Berry and Field Yates just had this same exact conversation yesterday. So, I mean, it's something that's worth talking about. And I love J.K. Dobbins' upside in dynasty leagues, assuming Ingram's gone after this year. Lamar Jackson, obviously been underwhelming, but he's got that playoff schedule that we talked about last week. Starting to fade Mark Andrews a little bit. He's not somebody I'm targeting in trades, but some deeper pulls on this team. I like Marquise Brown still. I think that he can have a breakout game soon, if not this week. He's seen 40% of his team's air yards, which is the third most of any wide receiver in the league behind Terry McLaurin and Adam Thielen. So he needs to start turning that into some production, obviously. And we also talked a bit about last week about how they faced the Cowboys, Browns, Jaguars, and Giants in weeks 13 through 16. So a soft playoff schedule and the opportunity that he's been seeing can make him a league winner if you trade for him. But you could probably get him for cheap right now. I mean, I don't think anybody's asking too much. But to answer your original question, obviously you're still starting Lamar, but you should make a move for Hollywood while you still can.
Yeah, when we look at Hollywood, he's actually 91st overall in target accuracy when targeted. So that's not good. Like, 91st wide receiver in the league when it comes to Lamar Jackson actually hitting that dude. And hitting him in stride, by the way, too. Even though he might have been hitting him, in the numbers, it might have been a little bit, lower on the ground, might not have been in full in stride. Like, it's just a situation that's not looking good over there for the Ravens and their passing attack. But like you mentioned, hey, great schedule, so maybe you can get him cheap. Hey, he might even end up on the waivers after this week if he has another bad week. Now, another dude that I want to talk about in the Ravens is Mark Andrews. He only has 8 catches over the last 3 games. We already talked about it. He's got the Patriots, who are giving up the second least fantasy points to the opposing tight end. The only team that has been better up against tight ends so far this year, they're the Colts. Jonnu Smith finally got back into the touchdown column last week. But guess what? Ever since Juan got hurt, he's been having to block a lot more often on passing downs, which is kind of a bummer. We never really know what's going to happen with the Titans tight ends from week to week, especially with Fursker being in there. So are we actually going to start Jonnu Smith? What's going on? Talk to me, guys.
Man, I'm not starting Jonnu Smith. He hasn't been consistent, and until he can start showing that consistency of more than 2 targets per game, I'm not doing it. He's only seen more than 2 targets per game once in the last 4 weeks, and over the last 4 weeks, Anthony Fursker has seen 20 targets to Jonnu's 10. So Fursker, he's a terrible blocker and a great route runner, so it makes sense that they're asking Jonnu to block, especially with Luan out. But it's frustrating because we know Jonnu can be a yak monster. That guy just piles up yards after the catch. He's 166 yards after the catch, which is the sixth most of all tight ends. And to compare that to other tight ends, his 24 catches are 15th most in the league. So, he's doing a lot with little opportunity. The talent is undoubtable, but because he's being used as a blocker, you just can't really plug him in as a weekly consistent play anymore.
It is tough. It's very tough. Juan, where do you stand on this one?
Yeah, what you said there is absolutely great because it doesn't really take much to produce a tight end 1. And believe it or not, Jonnu's the tight end 7 on the season. He's averaging 11.3 points per game. Now, his own injuries, and like you guys both mentioned, Taylor Lewan being out, that's a huge obstacle on the way. But there's a good reason to start him, and it's his usage in the red zone. He's had 8 targets in 8 games and with 6 catches, and they were all touchdowns, all 6 of those catches. So that's how he gets his touchdowns. So I know Indy's second in points allowed against the tight end. They're only allowing 7.6 per game, but they also haven't allowed a touchdown yet. And so my optimism is leaking out here again. But that's got to change at some point. So why not Jonnu?
Because you have Hawkinson, right? Hawkinson's 7 catches for 65 yards was the best game a tight end has posted up against Indy all season. So in half-point PPR, he's currently the number 3rd overall tight end this season, which I absolutely love because I love Hawkinson. And obviously, he's a weekly tight end 1. But where do we have him ranked for the rest of the season, guys? Because I don't think number 1 is out of the question.
It's not. You're right about number 1 isn't out of the question. He's got a tough hill to climb to catch Kelsey, but 3 feels about right. So he's not going to win you a week, especially after Galladay comes back, but he's going to give you that steady production week to week. Kelsey and Waller are the only 2 must starts in the league for me after Kittle went out with the injury. So after that, it's kind of a crapshoot at tight end, and it feels like the guy that scores a touchdown in each week, that's the winner. That's the guy that ends up there. So only 12 tight ends average 10 points a game or more, and Hawk is 3rd among them. So to help his case, he faces defenses ranked in the bottom 10 of tight ends in 5 of his next 7 games. So he does have a really good schedule going forward.
Wow. I didn't realize that he had that nice schedule coming up.
Yeah, he does.
So I guess with Hawkinson, it just sort of depends what you're looking for. If you want a safe floor, there's nobody in the league better than Hawkinson besides maybe Kelsey. He's had multiple catches in every game this season, and he's held in a touchdown in 5 of his 8 games. But his ceiling seems pretty low. He hasn't cracked 65 yards in a single game yet this season. His ceiling game in the NFL was his debut last year, week 1, when he went for 131 yards and a touchdown. Since then, he's played in 19 games, and he's averaging just 31.4 yards with that 65-yard ceiling I mentioned. He didn't crack that last year either. So he's 8th in the league in targets for tight ends. And I think right now it's being heavily weighted with a lot of touchdowns. I personally prefer somebody with a higher ceiling like Goddard or Gronk or something like that. So I know a lot of people are putting Hawkinson in that 1 to 3 range, but I've got him at 5. I'd take Kelsey, Waller, Gronk, Goddard, and believe it or not, Evan Ingram, man. The guy's been seeing targets all year, and he's finally starting to turn it into some production.
Smoking crack.
Only on the weekends.
Full disclosure, I'm with Dave on this. I had Evan Ingram as my number 1 tight end going into the season until Barkley went out, obviously, but I thought he was going to have a monster season.
And I think he's number 2 in targets on the year right now.
Right.
He's seen the production, or he's seen the opportunity. He's finally turning into some production.
Yeah, but guys, you're forgetting something.
The Giants.
Danny
No,
Dimes.
not even that. I like him on the Giants. He's a perfect fix. The Giants don't have anybody else outside of Sterling Shepard whenever he plays in the slot. When he doesn't play in the slot, he's useless. But no, you're forgetting something, guys. The fact that he's competing with Eric Ebron, and I'm not talking about on the same team. I'm just talking about drops. He has 8 drops on the season so far, which is number 1 in the league for tight ends. Meanwhile, right, he's competing with Eric Ebron for one of the most athletic tight ends of all time to not be able to catch the ball. And he's competing with Kellen Winslow for that honor and Eric Ebron.
Wow.
So, up until he can catch the ball, he's never going to be a tight end 1 for me. You can't sit there and have 8 drops in 8 or 9 games so far this season and be considered the number 1 tight end. Can't do
That's
it.
True.
Fair enough.
True indeed.
He should have had multiple more touchdowns this year than what he's actually had. But let's get back on track with where we were going, right? Because we were talking about Hawk and the Lions face up against Washington. We've seen Detroit, get gashed by Dalvin Cook. We've seen him get gashed by the Colts. They've fallen below Green Bay to be the league's worst rushing defense, which is actually pretty embarrassing overall. Now, Antonio Gibson is dealing with the shoulder injury. So if Antonio Gibson's healthy, are you playing him? If not, are you playing J.D. McKissic? If they're both playing, do you start either one of those guys or both of them? Where are you guys going with this, Dave? We'll start out with you.
All right, so for the sake of discussion, let's just assume that Antonio Gibson's playing. I think he practiced today, so that's a good sign. But yes, Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissic, they should both be in your lineups against Detroit. Last week in a close game against the Giants, McKissic saw a season-high 83% of his team snaps. And most of that came after Antonio Brown coughed up that real costly fumble, the one that was just bouncing for like 50 yards down the field. But prior to last week, prior to last week, McKissick's snap count had been pretty relegated to 44 to 55% of his team snaps. Antonio Gibson, we know he's a big play waiting to happen. His ceiling is immeasurable, but McKissic is the one that's averaging 4.3 targets per game before he saw 14 targets last week. So they both have great upside in this game, and I'm starting both of them. I think McKissic he can be a reliable RB2 just like Gibson can.
Juan, where are you standing with this? Because honestly, like we're talking about if Antonio Gibson, if he does end up playing, if he doesn't, it's obviously going to be Peyton Barber season. But let's just say that he does play.
We're going to assume the bright side that Gibson's still going to play, but I love doing the show because we talk about it all the time that you learn something every week. Like I learn something from you guys every week, and then you do the dives and you find things out. McKissic is on pace for 68 catches and 500 yards. Like that's a revelation, dude. Like you weren't expecting that at the beginning of the season. So at worst, he's a flex play. And he gets an uptick even if Gibson doesn't play. And like you said, it's going to be Barber season. And I think McKissic gets a little bit of work. Now, McKissic also hasn't scored a touchdown, which I feel like that's coming at some point. He's going to score. And we're talking about the Lions here. They're not just the worst rushing defense. In points allowed to the running back, worst in the league at 34.5. Through the air, 8.6 yards per target to the running back, worst in the league. 15 total touchdowns to the running back, worst in the league. You see the trend, like where it's going. So like, if I'm a Gibson owner, like I'm lighting candles, I'm saying a prayer, like please let him have a go with these guys.
Yeah, God, man, I want Gibson to play so bad.
Right?
But oh man, I want Gibson to play so bad. This is another huge week that he could end up having, and it would just put salt in the wound for everybody that was hating on Gibson. I would love it so much. But yeah, like we talked about, Detroit's a terrible rushing defense. Both Washington running backs, they could have a big week if, of course, Gibson plays. But it's not like guaranteed because Washington just does weird stuff sometimes that we don't really understand. But either way, I'm still going to be playing them both in a flex position if they do both play. But let's talk about a team that's giving up the most points to the wide receiver because we just talked about, of course, Detroit giving up the most points to the running back. Can you guys guess which team that is? No, you guys already have the show sheet. I know you guys know.
But we would have been able to guess. Yes.
The Seahawks have been getting beat through the air all year, right? They're facing up against the Rams this week. And honestly, the Rams have actually been a very run-heavy team so far this year. Last year, I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty sure that Jared Goff led the league in passing attempts. This year, it's been very, very run-heavy. Throughout the offseason, McVay actually kind of revamped this entire offense. In fact, they skipped the combine. To actually go and get together with the rest of the coaching staff to devise a new playbook that has obviously led to more running plays and a committee. So with that being said, right, it's going to be a little bit tricky as to where we actually go with this passing attack because we don't know how relevant it's going to be. But if you had to pick up a favorite pass catching option for the Rams, who would that be?
Yeah, it's tough because it should be anybody. Just if you're wearing a Seahawks uniform and you're playing, if you're wearing a Rams uniform and you're playing against the Seahawks, line them up, put them in your starting lineup. It could be anyone. Last week we saw Smokey John Brown, 8 catches for 99 yards, and he wasn't in a single highlight. We saw Isaiah McKenzie, Gabriel Davis score, and Diggs had 9 for 118. So all 3 wideouts for the Rams could find success. But if you have to pick one, I'm going to pick Cooper Kupp. He's 8th in the league in targets, 11th in receptions, but he only has 2 touchdowns. So I feel like that positive touchdown regression, this might be the week that it happens. And they're coming off a bye, and he's facing a secondary that's allowed the 3rd most touchdowns with 13. So this probably is the week that Kupp scores. I'm going to go Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Cooper Kupp and even Robert Woods are the obvious answers here, but I want to shout out Josh Reynolds for a quick minute. Over the last 3 weeks, this guy's seen 22 targets, and he's pulled in 10 receptions for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, Woods has seen 23 targets over the last 3 games, just 1 less than Reynolds. So, if you're talking about the best player outright, you got to give it to Woods or Kupp. But if you're looking for a great value, somebody that you could probably pick up off of waivers right now, I absolutely love Josh Reynolds this week.
Yeah, Josh Reynolds is actually one of my sneaky plays for DFS this week. But Robert Woods, I do want to give a shout out to as well. I know he's kind of like an obvious play to an extent, but keep in mind, Quentin Dunbar over the past 2 weeks has been dealing with a chronic knee issue. It's something that's been bugging him for, the past 3 or 4 weeks is what I was saying. Quentin Dunbar was actually really good over the beginning of the season. He was above average. He was great last season. Now, all of a sudden, we're sitting there and we're seeing him struggle big time up against these number 1 wide receivers. And it's primarily because they're leaving him on one-on-one coverage with a hurt knee up against these primetime receivers. So keep an eye on that. Robert Woods could actually be a huge, huge play this week. There's no way in hell that I'm sitting him, but I think that was a little bit obvious. So let's go ahead and jump on to my next topic that I wanted to talk about. And we're talking about opposing defenses because the Rams, right, are giving up the second least points to the wide receivers so far this year. You got to assume that Jalen Ramsey, if he's playing, which I expect him to, because I believe he's healthy now, he's not sick anymore, he's going to be shadowing DK Metcalf. Meanwhile, we have Lockett, who should be shadowed by
Troy Hill.
Troy Hill.
Yep.
I was going to say Hill or Hilton. I couldn't remember which one it was. Yes, Troy Hill. And Troy Hill, what he does is when they go into two receiver sets, he plays on the outside. When they go to 3 receiver sets, he slides to the slot. Very similar to, you guessed it, Tyler Lockett, who obviously plays on the outside in 2 receiver sets. Sometimes he'll go to the outside. I expect Troy Hill to shadow Lockett. Meanwhile, I expect Ramsey to shadow DK. So where are you guys attacking this game?
So I feel like everybody's kind of already dug into one side or the other, whether they, expect DK or Tyler to have the big game.
Yeah, it's like the whole Jonathan Taylor and Clyde Edwards-Helaire argument.
Yeah.
or Metcalf.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm on the side of the fence that thinks that Ramsey's going to pose a bit of a problem for DK. Jalen Ramsey, he's a big and physical DB, similar to what we saw with Patrick Peterson. And everyone keeps, pointing out that DK lit up Tre'Davious White last week, but they're failing to, talk about the fact that Patrick Peterson got the best of DK just a few weeks ago. Now, I'm not saying that DK can't get the best of Jalen Ramsey because he certainly can, but Russell Wilson looks for the open man, and I expect Tyler Lockett to have a lot easier of a time getting open against Troy Hill than DK is going to against Ramsey. So a lot of people have been quick to point out that Tre'Davious White game, like I mentioned, but I'm just not expecting DK to go off this week. He might be able to break off one big play. He always has that ability, but I really like Tyler Lockett this week.
There are 2 things I would like to point out. Tre'Davious White is 5'7" or 5'8".
Exactly.
DK Metcalf's like 6'10". So that's going to be the first thing I want to point out. And they did not give him over the top safety coverage like I thought that they would. So they were playing the deep ball. So, you're not going to be able to – DK is just going to body him. But that's not going to be an issue with, of course, Jalen Ramsey because Jalen Ramsey is extremely physical as well. My issue comes with Jalen Ramsey and his like 6th sense of trying to intercept the ball where he just jumps routes.
Mm-hmm.
On double moves, he gets burned a lot. So that's where I'm a little bit afraid of that. But either way, I still think it's going to be a very physical matchup, and I'm kind of on your side. Juan, where are you sitting?
Yeah, I like what you said about the double move because I remember Darnell Mooney gave it to him in that game against the Bears, right? Mooney gave it to him on that double move, and he was wide open, and Foles missed him. He didn't have the time to throw it.
Only by like 20 yards.
Well, yeah, just 15, 20 yards, and I think it was out of bounds. But, but Mooney was open. Mooney did his job. So Ramsey can be had to chase his point. So I like that. And I'm done betting against DK. Like, I can't bet against him anymore. And when week 2, Stephon Gilmore did a great job. He held DK to 4 catches. He had 92 yards and a touchdown. Xavier Howard and Byron Jones held him to 4 catches. He went for 106. And like Dave said, only Peterson was able to contain him, Patrick Peterson. But in that game, DK had a 50-yard touchdown callback. So right now, to me, he's matchup proof. And even if Lockett's lining up in the slot 72% of the time, I think that this game will be a little bit slower pace. And McVay coming off a bye is going to want to run the ball. And I'm not betting against DK anymore. I can't.
What if it's like neither one of those guys and Darius Williams has a hell of a time up against
David Moore. David Moore, he's had some big plays this year.
He has, for sure.
This is like the perfect matchup for the Rams. Like they match up so well up against this team. And I feel like the only weakness actually comes with David Moore. So that's actually a guy that I'm going to be playing a lot in DFS. And honestly, I think that he's playable in redraft leagues as well. So
I agree.
That's just something I wanted to bring up real quick. But I do want to talk, Lockett, right? DK Metcalf. They both had, slightly, I guess, they've shown that their weakness is kryptonite from time to time. We saw, who was it? Lockett got kept in check this past week by Buffalo. So, God, man, it's tough for me to pick either one of these guys. But, while I'm on the topic of Buffalo, right, can we talk about Stephon Diggs, right, who's the number one receiver in yards and receptions on the year, baby? And I think he's like fourth in targets right now. It's something along those lines. But can we accept that same type of production to continue throughout this year or even this week? I mean, we talked about Patrick Peterson, how he's able to shut guys down. Now, I do know that Stephon Diggs plays a lot in the slot. So where are you guys on Stephon Diggs this week?
I was one of those guys that I've been a hater or a doubter of Diggs, you know what I mean? But I have been proven completely wrong. Last week, Devontae Parker was held to 6 catches for 64 yards by Patrick Peterson. So it's going to be a tough matchup. But like you said, Diggs is in the slot 58.6% of the time. So that's going to free him up. And it's a game that has shootout written all over it. So Diggs has double-digit targets in all but 2 games this season. So he's getting the usage that you need to be the league leader in catches and in yards. And he also hasn't scored in 3 weeks. So it's going to be one of those, like, it's my turn kind of deals with the receivers. And I think he's going to get his chance to score. It's a baseball term, but I think he's due for a touchdown this week.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, seeing how Josh Allen's been playing, I don't think there's any reason to believe that Stephon Diggs can't keep this trajectory up. His worst game of the season came against the Rams when Jalen Ramsey kept him pretty in check, 4 yards and 4 catches for 49 yards. He was able to salve his fantasy production that day with a touchdown, but he has kind of struggled against big and physical corners this year. So like we were just mentioning when we talked earlier, but the similarities between Ramsey and Peterson, if Peterson does end up on Diggs, which I know you said he doesn't play the slot often, but if he does end up on Diggs, he can pose a little bit of a problem for him in week 10. However, if he does struggle, just use that as a prime opportunity to try to buy low. Diggs right now, he's got all of the signs there except for the touchdowns. So if you can prime away from an owner right now, you got to make a move for Diggs because he's only going to get better from here on out.
I love Diggs, man. I love Diggs, especially since they move him all over the field. Like, he doesn't have a designated area where he takes, snaps from. He is all over the place. They just want to try and find the mismatch. And speaking of mismatches, right? Christian Kirk, who has 236 yards and 5 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. I hate the role that he's playing over there because I don't think that it fits him. It doesn't make any sense to me. But, hey, he's been producing. So is he finally a weekly starter for you guys? What's going on with Christian Kirk?
Yeah, man. I think when you're on the same team as DeAndre Hopkins and you're outperforming him, you've earned a spot in starting lineups in fantasy. Hopkins has just 1 touchdown throughout the last 3 weeks, while Kirk has 5. So the weird thing is that Hopkins has been on the field for almost every snap, and Kirk has played 81%, 79%, and 64%. So he's not even getting used that much, but he's making the most of his opportunity. I think what it is that the coverage Hopkins is drawing is leading to an increase in opportunity for Christian Kirk, and he's just taking full advantage of right now. So I think you could plug him in as a low-end wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season, and his upside, it could even be low-end wide receiver 1.
Wait. Hopkins is drawing coverage?
You don't say.
People are
you
covering
don't say. I mean, it's getting to the point, though, where they're just double-teaming D-Hop every single game. So Kyler's looking at Kirk, and he's open.
And then they're just giving it to Hopkins beyond the line where the defense can't get to him yet. They're trying to put blockers in front of him. I mean, I'll tell you what, like it's been absolutely insane, the utilization of Hopkins, and I kind of expected it, but not to this extent. I mean, just sitting there and checking out his numbers, like it feels like we're vintage 2017 again or 2018. He's sitting there and he has, 16 targets, 9 targets, 12 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets, 8 targets, 12 targets. Last week was the first week that he didn't have a significant number of targets. So how are you feeling about Christian Kirk, my good friend Juan?
I love Christian Kirk, but I want to ask you a question real quick before we go on. You said that you don't foresee that being his usage, or you don't like that the way he's being utilized, Christian Kirk. You foresee him in the slot after Larry Fitzgerald is gone, right? Is that where you want to see him?
I hate the fact that Isabella is playing the slot role, the backup slot role, I should say. Meanwhile, Christian Kirk is playing on the outside because Isabella, although he's a fine slot receiver, his skill set, although he is smaller, he's still a go guy. Like, you get him out on the outside, you let him beat the slower corners, you let him try and get one-on-one coverage with safeties, and you just beat him that way. And it drives me nuts that he's getting utilized solely in the slot. Meanwhile, Christian Kirk, who's a more slot type guy, who's a possession type receiver, who's good, has great agility, can find he has like this knack for finding these open spots inside the zone. That's what the slot receiver does. And by the way, Fitzgerald's been doing great with it, but you can tell that he's slowing down to an extent compared to where Christian Kirk could be excelling and doing even better. And it's just bugging me a little bit. Just a little bit, if you guys can tell. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Kirk was playing outside a lot more last year, right? I feel like he was getting those outside snaps, and now
he still is now.
Oh.
Yeah, he's purely on the outside. He should be a slot guy.
Yeah, I had that backwards. I thought he was seeing more of the slot last year.
Yeah, that's what I like too. Like I the beginning of the season, I thought the same role would develop and he would be in the slot. And I had him pegged to be a low end wide receiver 1, high end 2 because of all that coverage that D-Hop gets. But what Dave said, the rest of season, that's what's key. Like the rest of the year, in the 8 remaining matchups, 6 of those teams have a shutdown corner that's going to focus on D-Hop. You're going to play Trey White, Stephon Gilmore, Bradbury, Slay, and Ramsey twice. So Kirk should be able to take advantage of the fact that those matchups are going to be happening on the other side of the field. And his success isn't really recent. It's not like the last couple of weeks. He's either had a touchdown or at least 57 yards in 6 straight games. So that's going to continue as we see Kyler Murray keep on progressing. And he probably will become the first quarterback ever with 4,000 yards passing and 1,000 yards rushing. And Kirk should be the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, and as to your question about playing outside or inside, last year they started out real hot, playing a lot of 4 wide receiver sets. Mm-hmm. As the season went on and they realized they didn't have the offensive line to be able to protect Kyler, they ended up going towards more 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end sets to bring that blocker in. That in turn ended up forcing Christian Kirk to the outside towards the tail end of the season. Gotcha. They started slowing down the plays, moving. They started, kind of breaking it down to make it a little bit easier for of course, Kyler. And instead of trying to beat him off that one, quick pass out, and try and beat the defense into rushing him, they kind of give him a little bit more time and protection. So that kind of forced Christian Kirk on the outside towards the tail end of the season. And guess what? They're doing it again this season. They're using Dan Williams to block. Dan Arnold pretty much is an afterthought at this point. So it's something as to where that's not going to change for Christian Kirk being an outside guy up until, we see Larry Fitzgerald kind of ride off into the sunset, if you know what I'm saying. So with that being said, and talking about Christian Kirk, he did have a breakout game against the Cowboys 3 weeks ago. That was up against, well, like we just said, the Cowboys. Jalen Reagor, guess what, gets to face the Cowboys. He got to face the Cowboys 2 weeks ago and caught his first touchdown of the year. Once again, that's another outside receiver. He's hauled in 8 catches for 112 yards and 1 touchdown over 3 injury-plagued games. I'm already going to answer this for you guys, but I want to know your thoughts. Is he going to get better from here on out, or should he be dropped in redraft leagues? Now, the answer is he's going to crush it this week, and then he's going to fall off the face of the earth. But I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I'm one of those people. I hate dropping 4.4 speed guys. Like, I hate that, especially if they're in the first round. Like, I don't want to let go of a guy and especially if I held onto him and I left him in my IR spot and I never dropped him. Let's at least see what the payout is. And like you said, if he blows up this week and I can move him or include him in a trade as a kind of a nice piece somewhere, I'm going to do that. But otherwise, yeah, he's droppable.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because when the Eagles drafted Reagor, they were hoping that he was just going to be a healthier version of Deshaun Jackson, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field either. So when talking about numbers, there really isn't too much to talk about because he hasn't done much as a pro. But he's got blazing fast speed. He's got a quarterback that likes to throw the ball deep. So I think he's only got to get better from here on out. And, yeah, especially love his matchup this week, too.
And he has really small hands. But no.
Well, he's got really fast feet.
Oh, man, I can't get on the Reagor train. I like him this week, but I can't get on that train. I understand where everybody's coming from, though. This guy's hyper athletic. He actually, so I did a comparison in the offseason. He actually reminded me a lot of the poor man's Josh Doxson, which is weird because of the fact that they both went to TCU. So maybe that's what kind of jogged that thought process. But, they're guys who can make these athletic catches, out of nowhere. They have, insane metrics when it comes to their workout profiles. And honestly, it's a big play or nothing type thing for these two players. Now, Josh Doxson, I think overall had better size, a little bit more talent. Obviously, he dealt with injuries. And guess what? We're getting out to the same exact start to Jalen Reagor's career. So it's coming even more to fruition than what I could have ever imagined.
I'm seeing a lot of Jacoby Ford. That's what this reminds me of. Jacoby Ford, that first-round pick that the Raiders took. I mean, the guy couldn't stay healthy, blazing fast speed, couldn't make the catch.
Well, I think that Josh Jackson was actually comparable in their 40 times overall, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, right. And him and Ford are about the same size. Like Rager's a little bit smaller than both those guys, but yeah, Jacoby Ford's a good one. He was everybody was expecting him to do big things. Doxson too, though. Like I had Doxson in a lot of leagues too.
Oh man, I drafted him in the first round all over the freaking place. Yeah, so Doxson was a little bit slower with 4.50 speed, but he was a lot bigger. And yeah, it was just an athletic type comparison, not so much as like a size type, more that big play type, I guess, profile comparison. Now, when it comes to, I want to pivot off this, right? Because if I don't pivot off this, I'm going to stay on this the entire night. But, we're talking about another rookie wide receiver, which is CeeDee Lamb. And I had him with over 100 catches, or I had him right at 100 catches this year. I thought that he had a very big chance part of the season to break Michael Thomas's record of 102 receptions on the season for a rookie. But ever since Dak went down, man, it's been sad. Like, what are we supposed to do now? Because I own him in a lot of leagues. What am I supposed to do? Should I buy him? Should I sell him? Should I drop him? What do you guys want me to do?
Well,
you guys tell me.
In fantasy, in Dynasty, you can't do anything except hold him. But talking in redraft, I still wouldn't drop him in redraft. You've got to at least hope that he can get something going once Dalton comes back. But unfortunately, a lot of things are just trending down for Lamb. He was seeing 60% of his team snaps when Dak was healthy, and as many as 83%. But since Dak has gone down, Lamb hasn't logged more than 55% of his team snaps. So it's almost like they're kind of phasing him out in a weird way. Another insight to his drop in usage is his target counts. Over the first 6 weeks, Lamb saw an average of 8.5 targets per game. Over the last 3 weeks, he's only seen 5.7. So, like I said, he's still a great dynasty target because he's going to bounce back next year with Dak. But I'm a bit worried about him in redraft, but you can't really do anything except hold at this point.
Juan?
I don't have the stat in front of me, but I wish I did. That 55% of his snaps, lately, would that be attributed to them going with more 2 tight end sets, maybe because their offensive line is so banged up? Like, I'd be curious to know if that was the reason. But I'm going to agree with you, Dave. I'm going to hold him. Like he's seen at least 5 targets in every single game. So that usage is going to keep him relevant. So I'm buying him if I can to stick him in my flex in weeks 14 through 16 when Dalton will definitely be back. There should be no question that he's back weeks 14 through 16. He's going to face Cincy, San Francisco, and the Eagles. All teams that are vulnerable to the receivers in the slot, and Lamb is in the slot 86.4% of the snaps. So hoping that offense is right, he could be a sneaky guy to help you win a league later on in the playoffs.
Yeah, it looks like, that the new quarterback coming in could be the real deal. Gilbert, right?
Garrett Gilbert.
Garrett Gilbert. Whoever thought a quarterback's name would be Garrett Gilbert? Like,
we've got Gardner Minshew in the league, bro.
Gardner Minshew, though, that's not like his mustache makes up for that whole thing. But no, like, and the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, Garrett Gilbert. I can't even say that. Like, oh man,
not with a straight face. No,
not with a straight face. So talk about pivoting, right? I want to talk about Cleveland. I don't know why, but I do. Actually, I know why. Because Nick Chubb's back. Nick Chubb is back, baby, and he should be back at least. He should play. And I love Nick Chubb. I'm trying to trade for him in about 10 different leagues right now. Pretty much, offering the farm. Should I be offering the farm? What am I supposed to do with Nick Chubb, and where does Kareem Hunt sit beyond this?
I love this backfield either way with both of them there or with one of them not. The commitment to the run is absolutely great. They're 11th in the league in rushing attempts, so they're committed to that. So, but Kareem Hunt specifically, I'm going to flex him. He's only rushed for less than 66 yards twice, and he has 7 total touchdowns. And although the Browns don't throw it to the running back that much, 4 of his touchdowns are through the air. So he'll probably be welcoming Chubb back so he can get a little bit of a break. And with the loss of Odell, Cleveland's going to stick to that running game. And it doesn't hurt that at the end, they're going to play Houston, Jacksonville, the Giants, and the Jets, who are all ranked in the bottom 10 in points allowed to the running back at 25.4 or worse. So, yeah, I like Hunt and Chubb, obviously, the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about Chubb too much because, he's a smash RB1 every single week.
Yes,
and I think
he is.
Kareem Hunt, though, he showed that, his value is rock solid with or without Chubb. His usage obviously jumped quite a bit when Chubb was out. he was seeing 16.3 carries per game when Chubb was out, and he was only seeing 13 before. But he saw his yards per carry drop quite a bit from 5.23 in those early matchups to 3.91 with the increased workload. So he saw more opportunities, but weirdly enough, his fantasy points per game took a hit when he was the lead back. So I think Hunt is most valuable to this team when he can come in with fresh legs, take advantage of a defense that Chubb has already worn down. I think that with Chubb coming back, it's actually good news for Kareem Hunt owners, and I think that he might see a little boost for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I like it too. It's something as to where like this 1-2 punch really helps out with the Browns. And the Browns, like Juan brought up, has Houston. So while we're talking about Houston, while we're here on this game, let's go ahead and bring up Duke Johnson. Another guy who we don't know is better, with the main running back or without. Now, when he got drafted, right, Duke Johnson, he was supposed to be a bell cow type back. Like that's what people were assuming. I believe he came out of Miami, correct?
He did.
And the scouting reports like, hey, this is a 3-down back. But he has never had that chance to be a 3-down back. Last week in relief, he was all right. He wasn't bad. So, is this something where Duke Johnson could earn a starting contract somewhere else through whether it's a trade or whatever the concept is? Maybe it's a holdout. Where do we see Duke Johnson, not only with this game up against the Browns, but moving forward as well?
Well, as for speculating next year, I wouldn't even know where to start with that. But a lot of the things that I've been seeing people worry about is that Duke's going to have a smash game this week against Cleveland, and then he's going to start taking touches away from David Johnson in the future. And I just don't think that's going to happen. It seems like that's, this big topic of conversation every single week when a starting running back goes down, but it rarely happens. We saw Christian McCaffrey get all the carries last week in his first game back, and David Johnson's on a $39 million contract with Houston. So I think his job is, pretty secure there.
Yeah, I guess.
And I've watched these games, and it always looks like Duke is the more explosive player. But contrary to what the eye test may tell you, David Johnson has been the better running back this year in Houston. He's averaging 4 yards per carry, which is the most since 2016. Duke Johnson is averaging 2.8 yards per carry. So we've seen Duke in this league for 6 years now, and his role is pretty clear-cut. He's great in open space, but he can't do much in between the tackles. So I think that, his role is what it is. He's going to be a 3rd down back, even once David Johnson's back. But, going up against Cleveland this week, he could have a good one.
When he was good between the tackles? Do you guys know when he was?
When was that?
In Miami?
With Bill O'Brien at head coach. Bill O'Brien being the head coach over there was actually a genius play call for Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson was actually really good between the tackles when he was there. So it was kind of weird to see how it all happened because, Duke Johnson was a stud whenever he came in for relief or whenever he had the backfield to himself last year. So, Juan, where do you stand on Duke Johnson?
Yeah, I have to agree with Dave wholeheartedly here. Like, it's David Johnson's job. It's only a matter of time before he gets back on the field. The only thing that I'm going to add to this week, I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench in everybody's plan, is Buddy Howell out of FAU could see double-digit carries this week. He's a 218-pound back, and he's going to help in the short yardage, I think. And I think he gets 10 carries and maybe some goal line work. He's one of those sneaky plays, a guy that might actually cut into Duke's production a little bit.
Are you playing him over Duke?
Out.
No, I'm going to play Duke, but I think Buddy Howell scores a touchdown.
All right.
I think Buddy Howell scores a touchdown this week.
That's a hot take. All right.
That's
I
why
didn't
we're
realize
here.
that Higdon is actually a free agent right now. Is he on the practice squad? Karan Higdon?
I'm not sure if he's on the practice squad. I know Buddy Howell's definitely going to get some of the work this week.
All right. Here's the deal. Dave. Dave, are you there? Are you here?
I am.
I need you to look at me in the eyes, okay?
This is going to be good.
I know. Dave, are you looking me in the eyes?
I am deeply into him.
Okay. I know how bad you wanted David Johnson to go off up against the Jags this past week. You talked about it. And I'm here to tell you that if you did not see the box score, that did not happen. And I'm really sorry that happened to you. I really am. So I cannot tell you how much pain I feel in my heart knowing that you did not have that opportunity.
I know. It hurts. Hey, I'll take 2 carries for 16 yards. That's 8 yards per carry. I'll take that as a win. But he got knocked out early, but he looked good when he was in there.
Wow, taking wins where you can get them. That's awesome.
I'll take that. Okay. All right. Now, I will say we did get our first look over there at Jake Luton, however you want to say his name. He went 26 for 38 in that game for 304 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, plus 1 running touchdown, which Dave neglected to mention in the show notes. But it's okay, Dave, because I got your back.
Highlight worthy touchdown.
It was actually
It was really cool.
Quarterbacks are probably deep enough this year as to where you don't have to pick them up and start them up unless you're in 2 quarterback leagues. But what does Jake do for the Jaguars pass catchers going forward if he is the starter? Let's just say that he has a solid game overall, an above average game. I mean, Gardner Minshew is losing those wide receivers in the wide receiver room or in that offense. He was losing the wide receivers out on the field, man. It was like players were openly giving up on Gardner Minshew because it was a little bit out of the reach, but they were just expecting it to be, 5 yards away from him. So what happens over here? Like, what are we looking at? Dave, you want to start this out?
You know what? I was trying to find some numbers on this one, and I just, he looked good last week. We saw him play last week, and he looked good, but I'm going to defer this one to Juan. I know you watch a lot more college ball than I do, so what do you think about Luton?
Luton. I think we're going Luton with the pronunciation. You know what? Like it's kind of cool that he's Oregon State and Herbert is Oregon because I love big arm quarterbacks, and if you squint just right, he looks like Herbert-esque. Right, a little bit.
You have to squint while you're watching the game.
You have to squint because, otherwise you're like, "Oh, this is a Jaguars quarterback." So, you're like, "I don't like it." But he looks kind of like Herbert. Like both are in the Pac-12, both have big arms, and both are deceptively athletic. Like you said on that highlight play, that spin move wasn't like a lazy move. Like that's a really good move that he made. So the sample size in the matchup last week against Houston, that's not enough to help you make a determination, but it is easy to see. Like you said, the receivers look like they're having more fun, and just the threat of the long ball not only helps the guys on the outside, but it helps the offense as a whole, and it becomes symbiotic. So, this week, you saw James Robinson go off for 99 yards last week because if you stretch the field, you have open lanes to run. Jair Alexander may miss this game. Kevin King might remain out. So look for Luton to put up numbers trying to chase Aaron Rodgers and keep that game close or to keep them in that game. And I love all the offensive starters on this game, especially Shark and James Robinson because of Luton.
Dave, you got anything to add to that? I know you said you're deferring, but I just want to make sure that you didn't have some last minute just resurgence of passion that you wanted to throw Luton's way.
Speaking of resurgence, it was good to see DJ Chark bounce back last week. So, if Luton is the spark that team needs to revitalize DJ Chark, I'm here for it.
Yeah, he's got a tough matchup this week if Jair Alexander plays. I will say that. If he plays, because he's in concussion protocol?
Concussion protocol, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so Shark could actually be a sit, and guess what? Chenault could actually be the big play.
I've been waiting for Chenault season all year. Oh,
dude, you're not kidding, man. You're not kidding. Oh, man. All right, so I need to kind of gather myself here because I'm just thinking about what could have been with this whole entire Jacksonville offense this year with such a bad defense, man. All right, I'm regathered. I'm good, guys. I'm good. The Jags, they get the Packers this week, which we brought up. Most people were tuned in last week's Thursday night game where Marquez Valdes-Scantling caught 2 touchdowns. That's right, baby, because they listened to me on DFS, on my DFS show, and they made the right play. Good job, guys. Good job on listening to me. Now, was that just another flash in the pan, or can we start to count MVS as the number 2 option behind Devontae Adams? I already know my answer, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, first of all, I didn't know LaFleur tuned into the show, but if you're out there listening, hello, Matt LaFleur.
Hi, Matt.
No, he does. No, he listens to my DFS every week.
So after seeing just 54% and 63% of his team snaps in the first 2 weeks, MVS has seen at least 83% in every single game since. The weird thing, though, is that in those first 2 games, he saw 6 and 7 targets, and he's only hit that number once since. So the only thing I could really imagine is that Aaron Rodgers just has him in the doghouse. I don't really know what else is going on. He got those 2 touchdowns last week, but he was wide open on those. And I think everybody was just had this pit in their gut as they saw that deep touchdown going to MVS, just expecting him to drop it. Right now, though, he's seen a career low in catch rate. He's only hauling in 46.2% of the passes thrown his way.
Yeah, but that's because Aaron Rodgers isn't accurate, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's just garbage. Awful quarterback.
It's like Lamar Jackson throwing the ball or something.
we know he's had some costly drops this year. But when you got Adams on the other side of the field pulling in 77% of his snaps, and the rest of the team combined for 13 yards. There's just no pass catcher on that team that you can trust week in, week out besides Adams. So no, I'm not plugging MVS in as a weekly start.
Plus, Allen Lazard is coming back.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a Lazard
What you got?
season. Yeah, it's exactly it. It's Lazard season. As soon as he comes back, like Rodgers had a good rapport with him. He trusts him. And those drops are absolutely backbreaking. Like they're going to crush you. And he has the most drops and the highest drop rate. He's, that catch rate that Dave mentioned, 46.2%. Like that's below 50%, dude. It's not Lamar Jackson's throwing it to you. It's 2018 Josh Allen is throwing it to you. It's like it's historically bad. It's like Nick Foles is your quarterback. It's not good. It's not good.
Wait, oh God. I can't. I'm not even going to address that. All right. So when we talk about another option in this offense, Aaron Jones has cemented himself as the every down back, moving forward, especially after people, started worrying about Dexter Williams, Tyler Ervin creeping into a snap count, and I feel like it happens kind of like every time that a starter goes down. Now, we know that Aaron Jones is most likely going to lead the Arizona Cardinals in carries next year. So that's not what we're going to discuss, right? What I do want to discuss is people starting to speculate that their backups will steal the starting roles, right? Because that's the popular topic. That's what's hot when it comes to fantasy, but it hardly ever happens. But let's bring it up. DJ Dallas, right? He's looked decent. Let me make sure I emphasize he's looked decent in Chris Carson's absence. And I like DJ Dallas, man. I think he can snag some catches out of the air. He is insane with his hands. Absolutely love it. But yeah, Carson coming back, man. Like he might not get his role back, guys. Like he might be a backup. He could be the third stringer behind Travis Homer. He could be the third stringer, guys. So
just wait till Penny comes back.
Yeah,
fourth stringer.
Yeah.
Carson is going to be the fourth stringer, guys. Is that what you all are expecting? Is Carson to be the fourth stringer? Because I mean, I don't see any other option here. I don't see any other answer. I think he's the fourth stringer.
No, Carson's the starter, dude. Like, let's not get cute. Like Dave said a couple weeks ago. I love that line, by the way. Don't get cute. You know what I mean? Carson.
Be realistic right now.
Be realistic. Then Carson's going to be the workhorse as soon as he comes back. The only caveat is that players aren't always 100%. So, and Seattle likes to err on the side of caution and be slow with their guys. And they're definitely a team that's looking for the big picture. They're not worried about your fantasy team or mine or our fantasy intervention. They're worried about winning a Super Bowl. So Dallas had his chance, though, to have his, opportunity. And he didn't do the best with it. Like you said, he was just decent. So when Carson comes back, he should be the workhorse and he might actually help people win their league.
Yeah, I'm convinced this is just...
Dave, if you have anything else to say other than Carson's going to be the fourth stringer, I don't want to hear it. You proposed this question, damn it.
I mean, it happens all the time. Remember last week when everyone was like, oh, Mike Davis, he's going to be cutting into Christian McCaffrey. And what did we see? McCaffrey came back as the workhorse to the point that he injured himself. He touched the ball so much. So
Michael Hasty, Raheem Mostert ain't going to be relevant again.
And it's just, it's a weird conversation. I feel like it's something that just gets brought up because, it gets people excited. It gets people scared. And it's like, real hot topic to talk about, but we never really see it happen. So last year, everyone thought Rashad Penny was going to take over Carson every time he, stubbed his toe. Earlier this season, it was Carlos Hyde. He was going to take over. And then DJ Dallas has one kind of good game and one okay game. And now everyone thinks that he's going to suddenly cut into Carson's timeshare. No, it's not going to happen. It's absolutely not going to happen. Something else I want to point out. Yes. And something else I want to point out is that prior to his injury, he was sixth in points per game behind just Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, and Derrick Henry. So his job is safe. He's a workhorse. He's not going anywhere.
Okay. I believe you.
You should.
You convinced me that Chris Carson is going to be the fourth string running back on his own team.
Penny season.
Oh, man. Chris Carson is even the fourth string running back on the Arizona Cardinals. All right, so we have a few big name running backs that are coming back from injuries soon. We just brought up Mostert, right? Mixon, Eckler, possibly. We don't even know what's going on with Eckler over there. We got Chubb, who we already brought up. Kenyon Drake, Christian McCaffrey for the second time. This is round 3 for Christian McCaffrey total, starting out the year healthy, then getting injured, then getting, coming back, then getting injured again. Now he's coming back for round 3. So of all the injured RB1s and all the injured RB2s in all the lands across this great United States of America, Who are you most concerned won't come back to a full workload?
So I think there's two guys that concern me a little bit out of that whole list. First of all, Mostert. And
Stop listening to Adam. Stop listening to Adam.
So one thing, I'm sitting here, we're talking about guys losing their jobs. If you're an RB1, like if you're one of those top 10 guys in the league, you're not going to lose your job. Your job's solidified. But Mostert isn't that guy.
He didn't resign the contract.
And yeah, Adam got to me a little bit today. He was talking about how Mostert's that one-cut runner. He's like, you need a one-cut runner, and he's got that bum ankle. He's not going to be able to cut. And it got me thinking a little bit. And it's true. But the other guy is Kenyon Drake. He's somebody that worries me a little bit. Chase Edmonds, the guy's got no lack of talent. He's a good running back. Drake's workload was assumed to be in jeopardy before the season even started. And then this injury could have just sped up the inevitable process that he was going to lose his job at some point. He was only averaging 9.7 points per game over the first 5 weeks. So I'd be a little bit worried about Kenyon Drake, a little bit worried about Raheem Mostert, but Chubb, Carson, Eckler, Mixon, McCaffrey, don't even worry about it. Those guys aren't dropping to the fourth string anytime soon.
Fine. Juan, where do you stand on this?
My fear is with Mixon, Mostert, and Eckler. I have a little bit of fear with those guys. Mostert because he has competition at all times. You never know who's going to be the lead back, especially if he's not 100%. But Mixon and Eckler, they're going to be coming back to teams that are out. Like they're out of contention. They're done for the year. Like if you're a Mixon coach or you're the ownership of the Bengals, you might want to shut them down for the rest of the season. But Carson, Chubb, and Drake could be viable going forward or will be viable going forward. CMC is the hardest one for me. I think I want to sell CMC right now. Like, I think that this...
You did not sound like you were convinced when you said that. Like, your face was like, ugh.
I know, but, like, I think it's time. Like, I think the trade deadline's here, and I feel like everything's about the trade deadline, and I feel like it's time to go ahead and make a move if you're the CMC owner and try to get whatever you can, because he's going to get you a really, really good return. And then he has that Week 13 bye, which if you're trying to make the playoffs, that hurts too. So if you do keep CMC, he's got the Broncos, the Packers, and the Washington football team in weeks 14 through 16. But I think I would rather trade him. But those other guys that are on teams that are losing, that's what really scares me. Is like Mixon could be shut down for the rest of the year. That one's really scary for me.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to pay someone $48 million to shut him down for the year. I think he's playing through the season.
I mean, if he comes back and if he's healthy, I mean,
but I mean, he signed a long-term contract. Plus, you talk about Burrow's future as well, so they're going to want to keep the workload off as much as they can in a losing season. Now. Right. When it comes to CMC, I think you could probably get like David Moore for him, couldn't you?
Yeah, well, this week that would be great. One's playing and getting a great game going, and the other one's nursing something. You know what I mean? You got the AC joint.
Maybe like a Will Fuller. Think you get as high as Will Fuller?
You wish, but yeah, that would be great. I'll take Will Fuller right now. Yeah, Will Fuller.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I can give you Will Fuller for him.
6 straight games with a touchdown. Yeah, give me Will Fuller.
No, dude, so if you got an insane monster this year, man.
Yes, I know you said you're thinking about trading CMC. So if you've got CMC, what's the lowest you're going on the wide receiver rankings? Who's the lowest guy in wide receivers that you're taking for CMC, if anyone?
Joe Reed for sure.
Here I was going to say something serious like Terry McLaurin, but he said Joe Reed. Yeah, if I need a receiver,
sounds about right. I would if I need a wide receiver from wide receiver desperate, I would probably take that, to be honest with you, because I just don't know how Christian McCaffrey is going to be. But I would have to have significant running back depth. Like I would have to have insane.
Correct.
But the running back position this year is so bad. It's so bad. It's one of the worst years I've ever seen it.
I would take Jonathan Taylor. He's going to face Houston twice in the next few weeks. So I think for CMC, I would take Jonathan Taylor and maybe something else. Like if we're talking regular redraft, Jonathan Taylor can help people win a league.
Is he having a big game tonight? We're going to see it tonight? Jonathan Taylor finally going to step up?
He's my favorite DFS play for running backs, by the way.
I love
him. Yeah, I love him.
And he's expensive. He's like 8,800 on DraftKings, and I'm pretty sure everybody in here is about to leave because I'm talking DFS. So we're not going to talk about that. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get out of here. We've been going now for an hour and 10 minutes, so let everybody know where they can find you. We'll start out with Dave.
Well, you can find me at the Pregame HQ where I'm writing long-form articles. You can find me on Fantasy Pros, working their news correspondence desk where we're bringing you up-to-date news on player injuries, transactions, contracts, extensions, whatever it may be. And most importantly, you can find me with these lovely gentlemen at @JoinOurCircle_. We're just bringing you hot live streams all the time, podcasts, quick shots. We got it all going. So follow
Nature
it right
takes.
Nature
Injury
days.
report coming out. Big shout out to Steffi over there. We got an injury report coming out on Tuesdays. And yeah, Duffy, Frank, give me
Love
some more
you,
nature
Frank.
takes.
Yes.
We need to know how to win DFS from nature. All right, Juan, you're up. Slugger, what you got for us?
I'm Juan Carlos Pena. You can find me you can follow me at FF Juan of a Kind. I'm at thetiltisreal.com. That's where you can find my long form articles and you can see some of my written work. And we are at TIR _pod, and of course at Join Our Circle _ with this whole team. And big shout out to Frank Duffy, because seriously, Frank Duffy is the man. Him and the Aussie Angel, Brad Bolt. I got to shout him out too.
Dude, yeah.
But I look forward to doing a lot of great things with this whole team and getting us all together, and it's going to be awesome the rest of this year.
We're going somewhere, guys. We're going.
We
somewhere.
are indeed. We are indeed.
I'm excited. Now, and make sure you guys check out our team, like he just mentioned, at Join Our Circle _ Make sure you guys go check out thrivefantasy.com and use promo code CIRCLE to make sure you guys get doubled up on your cash that you deposit up to $50. Deposit 20, you get 40 back. Deposit 50, you get 100. So make sure you guys go check out thrivefantasy.com. Use promo code CIRCLE to sign up. And of course, you guys can find me at FF_intervention on Twitter. Hey, we appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.